Welcome to the kingdom. I'm Chris, and this is Good Enough Gaming. Howdy, folks, and welcome back to part 5 of our exploration of this Reddit thread about why one-page rules hasn't been bigger than it is, what might be holding it back, and, associated topics. So, without further ado, let's jump back in. Okay, so jumping back in from where we left off, Jamie says the problem is that gamers need to see other gamers playing it, so they know if they decide to hop in, there'll be other folks to game with. When I played with a bud at the friendly local store, there were quite a bit of interest from passersby, but that's something we need to sort of push a bit more. It helps for sure if you know that if you jump into this game, there's a ready-made community. But we've seen previous posts on here, and obviously they don't represent everyone, but who said, and I agree with this, there are people who will buy Games Workshop models. They'll buy the codexes. They'll paint them. And they never play. And it's not that they don't want to. It might never work, but for them, they don't have to be able to play to get into it. The world is enough. The building hobby is enough. They probably play some of the games, read the books. But I don't believe it's necessary because if, as someone else pointed out, because this is kind of a grassroots game, OPR is, if you don't have a community already existing, but you think you might be able to start one, then you will. So it's helpful to see other gamers, but I do not believe that it is essential. Now, Jack the DM says everything you hate about Warhammer is the reason it's successful. So number 1, it's expensive. People need a place for their disposable income, and spending money makes people feel like they're investing. Number 2, the rules are so complicated. This gives the people a feeling of mastery. Number 3, you constantly chase the meta. This makes people feel like they're part of a community or like they're in the know. It's imbalanced. This gives people things to whine and complain about, which keeps people engaged and captures attention in an unhealthy way. And the lore is so weird and fascist and bloated, it has strayed from the path or is ... Yeah, some people want to pour infinite time into mastering the persnickety details of a boundless universe. Well, major points for using the word persnickety here. This isn't everyone, but this is the codependency that GW and 40K fans have. They're custom built-in hell for each other. Wow. Tell me how you really feel. Still, let's address his points. It's expensive. Yes, it is. It absolutely is. But he does bring up an interesting point that if you feel like you're investing, right? Think of what you think about spending $1 at the dollar menu. I guess nowadays it's more than that. But, buying a fast food burger for a couple bucks versus going out for a really nice steak dinner. You expect more because it's more expensive, and it makes you feel a little better. When you can afford to go to a super nice steakhouse once in a while, it kind of makes you feel good about yourself. Whereas if you can never afford the steakhouse, you kind of feel bad. Does gaming work the same way? If I can afford a more expensive game set like 40K stuff, does that actually give me a bit of a boost? I don't know if it does. I'm sure some would. Like, there are some folks that they judge others by the car they drive, the size of their house, their bank accounts. So I'm sure there are some of those in 40K, but I agree with his critique here that it's expensive is one thing, but people need a place for their disposable income, and spending money makes it feel like you're invested. Yes, but I think you might be taking it too far. The rules are complicated. It gives people the feeling of mastery. Chess has rules that aren't that complicated. Mastering that is a lifetime pursuit. So the rules are so complicated. See, this is that argument that if you quit 40K by saying the rules are too complicated, it's really because you're a moron and you just can't handle it. That's a bit disingenuous. I mean, anyone who has, where am I trying to go with this? Complication doesn't mean quality. Just because something's more complicated doesn't mean it's better. I mean, think of a business that has an incredibly runaround bureaucracy and getting anything done is complicated. And then some new manager comes in and streamlines it. Does everyone go, oh, things got worse now that it's streamlined? No, not necessarily. Complication's only good when it serves a purpose. But if it's just bloat, then it's not good. Now, I agree with him. If you can master a complicated rule set, it feels good. That's why people with advanced college degrees are usually looked up to by society, because they have taken something complex and mastered it. But this is a game, and I don't want to have to feel like my hobby involves having to master super complex information. That's what my job is for. I want to relax. The next one, you have to chase the meta. This makes you feel like you're part of a community or in the know. Only for those who chase it. The people who complain you have to chase the meta, I think what their complaint is, they're casual gamers stuck in a competitive world. OPR, I think, does a lot better about blocking meta because their game's a little more balanced. It's not perfect, but it's certainly better than 40K. On to his next point there. It's imbalanced. This gives something to people to whine and complain about. Now, if that's honestly the goal, that would scare me, that a company would intentionally break their product in order to give someone something to complain about so they stay hooked to it. But we did learn that GW makes very little effort to balance the game. Instead, they make the effort to sell models. And if the new models coming out are better than the old models and more powerful on the table, they're going to sell them. And then the last one, the lore is weird and fascist and bloated. Okay, very few people actually use the word fascist correctly. Weird and bloated. Lore? Can lore be bloated? I thought the whole point of lore is to just keep adding and building. Weird? I could get that. Some people might look at 40K and say it's just too much. But then again, look at some of the other massive science fiction worlds like Star Wars. That's pretty weird too. So he brings up good points. I just don't think he's quite addressed them as well as he could. This shot at the end, though, that's pretty harsh. That it's a codependency, the fanboys and 40K, and they're custom built in hell. That's pretty harsh. Okay. J-Man Shaman saying, spending money is actually a big part of what keeps us in the hobby. Yes, our wallets hate it, and yes, we whine about it, but we all get a dopamine rush from the retail therapy. That's probably why we accumulate piles of shame. Sometimes the buying is the best part. Definitely, but that's an addictive behavior too. So, I don't know. That's getting off topic here. They're now starting to part. Well, maybe not getting off topic, but you can spend money in OPR. The thing is, you don't have to spend as much to get a lot. So, I'm not sure about that. Let's see. Moving on to Earth Sound 1. I have a pretty large Saurian army, but I've never played OPR. I use it as a Seraphon proximity for Age of Sigmar, but I'd be down to play if anyone else is interested. I would like to try it out, but as it stands, everyone plays 40K or 9th Age. See, now there's a game I've never seen played. So why not start the OPR community? Anyways, Sodink says, not sure. Here in Russia, the OPR just isn't a thing, though basically everybody in the community heard about it. I've tried to organize a game a few times with my friend group, but people barely have free time to play, and that they already know and love for their lore. Underworlds has taken up to 2 hours niche, and in the basically whole day niche, 40K has the strong dominance, with Age of Sigmar taking a distant second place. So that sounds like a thing of momentum. Going back to that talk, that OPR just doesn't have the momentum that 40K does. Savage Brewski says marketing and longevity. We've heard that one before. OPR is amazing, but 40K lives rent-free in people's heads. Yes, it does. Even a good deal of non-players see a Space Marine and recognize it. Well, that was the goal. When we got the new leadership of 40K shortly after 2000, and since then, the stock price has skyrocketed and everything, but OPR made a conscious effort to no longer be a niche hobby, but to become a brand. Like Pokemon, like Ninja Turtles, something that even people who have nothing to do with it recognize it. And that's when you started seeing versions of Warhammer being sold in Target. Small box games in the Warhammer universe in Barnes & Noble. It's when they made deals with Joy Toy to sell the plastic figures, the action figures. They understood what you're going to have to do to become a brand, not just a game. So this person has a good point when they say non-players can see a Space Marine and recognize it. Just as people who don't know who Pikachu is will still look at that and go, yeah, I've seen that before. So I like that comment. 40K lives rent-free in people's heads. Well, it's tried very hard to get there. It really has. In fact, at one point, remember, if you were keeping up with 40K, they tried to essentially make their name synonymous with wargaming. If any of you watch Discourse Miniatures, she did a video about it where Warhammer claimed that there was the Warhammer hobby. Not the wargaming hobby with Warhammer as a part of it. No, they tried to sell it as they are the hobby. Kind of like how Kleenex, everyone thinks of a Kleenex, but in reality, that's a brand name. You want a tissue. Or everyone thinks of a jacuzzi, but that's a brand name. What you want is a jet tub. But what Warhammer, I think, was trying to do is get to the point where people associate just their name with that hobby. And what this guy, Savage Brewski, has said, they have achieved it. What do you guys think? All right, Mo Ghost AO says, all the people I know who liked OPR ultimately decided to move back to 40K because they didn't feel like it had enough depth. There's that word again. OPR is a good rule set, but per the players I got into OPR later who later quit and went back, every army felt samey and lacking in mechanical flavor. And then Celeste 4 here says, I know it's a super late response, but I fully agree with this. OPR is amazing if you just want a simple war game, but it lacks flavor if you want something more complex. It just doesn't offer that at the moment, to my knowledge at least. So I would say I can definitely see that critique, but that is being changed. Now, I hope all these folks who say, I want more depth, I want more depth, I want more depth, they must be then willing to be ready for imbalanced armies, meta lists, and all of that. Because the more you make the different armies unique and flavorful, you also have to sacrifice balance. Because how do you make sure that the special rule that makes this army feel really cool is fair and balanced to the one that makes this army cool? How do you judge whether this particular special rule is worth 2 points per model or 6 points per model? So I agree that this kind of depth that they're asking for can be useful. Just know what the cost is. So if, we've seen this quite a bit now in these posts, if OPR becomes more complex, then more people will join it. But let me play devil's advocate. So basically, the more they become like 40K, the more people will play it. Is that the goal? Is OPR just driving in the lane next to 40K, slightly out of its peripheral vision, but making all the turns and lane shifts and stuff? I don't think it is. There's a danger of that happening, but I don't know. We'll need time to know for sure. Okay, let's move on here. A nameless fan says people who decide to get into wargaming, if not 40K, will typically go for another well-known rule set like Bolt Action or historical regiment style game. Nobody really knows about one-page rules because it's a niche set of rules within an already niche hobby. Yes. It is to hobbying what hobbying is to real life. Like if you talk to someone and you say, hey, what do you do for fun to relax? I play basketball. Oh, okay. I read books. Oh, okay. I wargame. That one gets some attention. And then within the wargaming, when you say I play one-page rules, a lot of people are like, I've never heard of that before. So it is a niche within a niche. Whenever I gripe to my family about my channel, I'm like, I'm not getting the views. They tell me, they're like, look, you are a niche within a niche within a niche. So for what you're getting, you're actually doing pretty well. So it's nice to hear that. But I totally agree with the nameless fan here about that. Now, if you'd like to spread this game like gospel, buy up some third-party Lego minifigures or plastic armament, base them, and take a few basic lists down to your local game store or library. Not quite sure that'll work. I once played a firefight game at my local gaming store using my Marvel Crisis Protocol guys. And some of the guys who were there playing Marvel Crisis Protocol stopped by because they're like, wait a minute, you have Marvel guys, but you're fighting orcs? What's going on? And I was able to say, hey, this is firefight. You could actually bring your models and play a skirmish game. And they're like, that's kind of a cool idea. And then they went back to playing Marvel Crisis Protocol. So, yeah. First comment she makes, yes. Second, not so much. Let's see, Miss Leap says, or Miss Leah P, says, because it doesn't do what Warhammer players like about their game. It's way too generic and without any epic hero hammer stuff. Awesome named characters is what drives casual Warhammer, and complicated list building mechanics outside of the units you picked is what drives competitive Warhammer. Well, that's an interesting point. I do agree that up until recently, OPR had no named characters. They have introduced them. They are not, however, and I'm glad for this, they are not like the named characters in 40K. I don't like Hero Hammer. I don't like the thought that a 2,000 point list is really just about the 1 or 2 characters you have and how the rest of the army is built to maximize them. For example, I played against a guy once who played orcs, and every time he played orcs, it was the same thing. He had a mega boss in mega armor with the lucky stick that he stuck in a unit of 30 boys. Essentially, his war boss, his general, was basically just a super tough melee guy who had 30 wounds because he could pass off using the lookout sir rule. He could pass off wounds to the unit. And then when he absolutely had to take them, he had a 2+ rerollable save. And I could never chew through it. It wasn't fun. That's Hero Hammer. So what OPR has tried to do is bring in named characters, but not make them game breakers. And that's going to be tough. I just like the idea that they provide you the army builder where you can make your own named characters if you want and make them as breaky as you decide. Okay, we got time for maybe 1 or 2 more. So Kits Fox says, I don't think there's any way that OPR could ever dethrone the thing that is blatantly leeching from. No Warhammer means no OPR. Not to mention Warhammer has years of story and lore built up that makes the game flavorful. Don't get me wrong. I hate modern Warhammer aesthetic and rule set. However, OPR has never really grabbed my attention or interest. The game seems too simple and flavorless for my taste, plus no real lore or story to attach to. It's hard to have a jumping off point when trying to enjoy the storytelling and modeling aspect of the hobby. OPR seems like the free mobile game of the tabletop world. Ouch. It may be enjoyable for a bit, but it doesn't have the girth, oh my, or substance to be a powerhouse of the space. I'd much rather invest my time and money in other games like Infinity, Bushido, Conquest, Song, or Bolt Action that have flavor and a world to delve into and make your mark on. Not a bad point. Can you dethrone the thing you're leeching from? On the one hand, excellent point, but at the same time, usually kings are dethroned by someone in their family. A son, an uncle, a nephew. So it's not impossible, but the point is there. Can you take over from the thing that you're borrowing from? That means OPR has to create its own lore, which is tough because they've started off in a straitjacket. But the fact that they say it's never grabbed their attention, it's too simple and flavorless with no real lore or story. I mentioned this when I talked about my comparison of OPR and GW. The lack of story, the lack of lore, is that good or bad? I like the idea that I can play it wherever I want, in whatever universe I want. I did that video where I used one-page rule set to play Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I didn't have to be in a specific world. Like, having the 40K universe is awesome. It's a fun place to play games, but you can't play anywhere outside of that. Whereas OPR says, we're not going to tell you where to play. That means you have to come up with a place. So a good point, but I don't think it's the OPR killer. That comment, the free mobile game of the tabletop world, that hurt. That hurts. I mean, it is free, but the fact that it's growing at the pace that it is, you get tired of a free mobile game within a couple days, maybe weeks. Whereas OPR has been getting bigger over the past several years, and it's not just new waves of people joining and then leaving before the next wave come in. They're staying. So they have a good point. Can you dethrone what you're copying? But I don't think they give them quite enough credit. So that'll do it for part 5. Keep an eye out for part 6, and until then, keep your dice on the table.